And come back into the Blue Door Pub Studios. It's for yet another Bull with Andy Carlson, Minnesota's 87th best daily podcast. Show about everything and nothing at all. Coming right at your ass. Right in the crack. 5 days a week. Sitting shotgun with me is a professional.
That's
Do I have to put
debatable.
That in quotes?
I mean, that's yeah. You can do like the finger quotes when you say professional.
Andrew Lee, he is the co-host of Justice and Drew Mornings on Twin Cities News Talk, AM 1130
and 103.5 FM.
And your demographic doesn't even know that FM exists yet, but that's okay.
Yeah, once they figure out Twitter, we'll let them know.
Yeah, see, that's sort of my thing. Like, technology always scales up. And people right now talk about Snapchat. It's like, oh, that's the thing that 15 and 14-year-old girls use. But it's like, yeah, old people weren't on Facebook until their grandkids' pictures were on Facebook, and then all of a sudden, So you just wait.
I do. I consider myself pretty savvy in social media, but I can't figure out how to use Snapchat.
Oh.
Like, I've tried, I've downloaded it, I've set it up, I've added people, but I don't know what to do with it because it seems like it's all like selfies. Like, you take selfies and you put the text with it, and I hate taking selfies. I refuse to take selfies. So I never know, like, someone will send me a Snapchat and it'll be like, I'm doing this. I don't know how to respond. It's always ends up being like a picture of my feet.
It's all about storytelling, and I'm a big storyteller. Like, I don't consider myself a raconteur because I actually think that's still like a raccoon. Like, I think Rocket from Guardians is a raconteur.
Yeah.
But say, like, you saw Al Franken downtown, and he, like, kicked a dog, like, right in the face, right? See, that would be a great Snapchat story.
Okay, I would put that on Snapchat.
You'd be famous.
Sure. Be a Snapchat celebrity. For what, 15 seconds? Yeah. That's how long they last?
Yeah. And that's into the political talk. No, I'm just kidding. He's also the co-host of the Minnesota Beer Cast, and your Twitter bio says that you're bad at poker.
Yeah, I play a lot.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I am not very good at it.
Home games, Canterbury, Running Aces, where you go?
All of the above.
Yeah.
All of the above.
Yeah.
Got a pretty active home game circuit with a good group of friends. Games almost every weekend, either at my house or friends' houses, and then a couple, once a week or so, I like to try to get to either Canterbury or Aces to do some of their morning tournaments.
Oh, that's so mainly a tournament, not cash guy.
I do not do well in cash games.
Cash
games are not my gig, man. I love tournament poker.
Yeah, because tournaments, like the chips in front of you, all you can lose. But in cash, it was like, oh wait, there's so many more chips in my wallet, or in that machine that will charge me a $5 convenience fee.
Yep, and just the strategy is different for a cash game. It's like your chips are your weapon in tournament poker, and you use them as leverage against other people's chips. Whereas in cash games, when your opponent has the ability to just go ahead and restack up, you don't have that kind of leverage. And I've not figured out how to really play the cash game strategy yet. And I haven't really tried, honestly. Tournament poker, it gives me my fix, gives me my fill, and I'm good with that.
Now, there's 0 IRS agents that listen to this podcast.
Good.
So what's been your biggest tournament score?
Probably, let me think for 1 second. I think my biggest win in tournament was a 4-way chop at Canterbury in one of their big Sunday morning tournaments, and we each walked away with about $760, $770.
Oh, that's
about $760.
Yeah. Nice little wham, little walking around money.
Yeah, and that was like only the second time I'd ever played at Canterbury. This was several years ago.
Oh, no, it's at the hook.
Yeah, exactly. So I walk out of there thinking, I'm going to do this every time now, obviously.
Yeah.
No, that's not the case.
I actually, oddly, I've had like a million jobs since college. Like I was a chef for a while. I played poker to support myself financially through college and a little bit after college. And then that led into me starting up private equity fund with some poker friends, but that's you're the guest here. But
I'm curious, though. I might ask you some questions about that.
I hung out with like so many poker players, like the Jens. I've been on Vegas a bunch, and the guys blowing up the tour now, like I knew them from back in the day. And there's a old-time poker pro named Lane Flack, who's known as like a big degen, sort of living on the edge guy. And he said that his biggest regret ever was him winning big the first time he played craps.
I could see that.
Because then he chased the dragon.
I could see that.
Literally.
Yeah. I know. I can relate. Like that first big cash at Canterbury, $750, $760. I hadn't been playing very long at that point. And to me, I'm walking out of there thinking, that's an easy game. You know, no, I just ran really good that day. You know, and now I realize that I've played a ton since then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, and because this might be a hot take, but I think I would rather be addicted to a very addictive drug as opposed to being addicted to gambling, because drugs you can get help for, gambling obviously can too, but gambling is socially acceptable and it's very accessible.
Right,
yeah.
And there's a lot of enablers.
Yeah, it's like if you're addicted to food. I feel really bad for people addicted to food.
Yeah, people who love you, people who are close to you, they'll know if you get addicted to a substance. It'll be obvious, and but you can be addicted to something like gambling, and you would be the only person aware of it. You know, because it's easy to hide.
Yeah. Go
into the card room. Nobody blinks an eye when they see you walking in the card room.
Oh, I'm here to watch the ponies. I love equestrianism. So that's a show. That's why we had to, no, I'm just kidding. You mentioned that this is like one of the first times you're a guest on another show, and I was talking with one of my producers today. I was like, yeah, I've never, well, I have been asked, but I'm never like a guest on other people's show because it's like hosts don't really bring in other hosts. It's like why Letterman's never been on Oprah.
Right. Yeah.
And it's kind of odd because you have like the key guests are like analysts, writers, someone who's selling a book or whatever.
Someone who's got something to promote or some degree of expertise that you're interested in learning more about as the host. Yeah. I've only been on other people's shows, once or twice. I mean, and I'm not counting like, you know, being in the radio business, you know a lot of people in a lot of different markets. So if there's like a big news story happening in the Twin Cities or in Minnesota, like a buddy of mine will call me up and ask me to do a quick hit on their show as sort of like the, you know, calling in live from Minneapolis type thing. But I've never been, I can't think of a time when I've actually been like interviewed. So it's kind of a weird experience for me.
Well, this is why I love podcasts, and I still have an eye for radio. Like I still think that's a big thing. Obviously, you're a big radio guy, but podcasts, I feel like there's so much freedom. Like we just went on a 5-minute jag talking about poker and addiction and whatnot. But on radio, you can't do it. It's like, oh, we're up against a break. Yeah, we gotta go. We got 13 minutes. We gotta cram it in. You want another segment? Oh, we can't do that. We got the guy from 651 Carpets coming in. It's like, all right.
Yeah, it's very formatted, very strict. You know, you do a segment on this, a segment on that, and you keep it moving. And you have to, because that's like the nature of radio listening is different than the nature of podcast listening. If someone clicks download on your podcast, clicks play, they're committed.
Yeah.
You know, they've committed to listening to this podcast. They're not going to go change stations. You know, when you veer off into a different subject, or if you go to a quick break or whatever. Whereas in radio, you know, you got to keep them from clicking that button all the time. So you got to keep the pace moving a lot faster than you do in a podcast. I love podcasts and I love the podcast culture, but it's a different ball game than radio. It's not. I don't view it as competitive. You know, I mean, we're not competing for the same types of listeners. We're not competing for ears. People still consume plenty of radio. Podcasting is just another thing for them to consume, and the data so far hasn't really shown that podcast listening is growing at the expense of radio listening. It's just adding to it.
Well, do you think it's certain types of radio are taking a hit, or do you think like, say, conservative news talk, sports talk will always have a place in the listening? I'm bad with words today.
I think there's always going to be a place for, I think spoken word radio has an advantage over music radio. There's always going to be a place because it's live, because you've got the immediacy, because you've got the ability to quickly react and adjust to news that is breaking, you know, while your show is on. You just can't do that with podcasts. Podcasts are just a totally different animal. You know, you can do a 20-minute podcast on a breaking news story, but you know, 20 minutes of recording, and you edit it down. It's not posted for another 30 minutes. Then it takes, 30, 40 minutes for it to populate into people's feeds. You just don't have that sort of immediacy. And that's not how people consume they're not looking for that in podcasts. Whereas with radio, you know, if we go on the air at 6 a.m., Donald Trump's always up tweeting at 5:30. We've got content right out the gate to work with, and people want to hear that, immediate reaction as to what's going on right now.
That's something that people also want, is a good night's sleep. How do you sleep?
I've actually gotten into this. Morning radio is a lifestyle. It's not a job. It's a lifestyle. So I've been doing mornings consistently since about 2004. So about 13 years. Started doing mornings in Indianapolis and stuck with it basically with a short break when I first moved up here, about a 6-month hiatus.
Yep.
And during that 6 month, I missed it. I found myself still kind of sticking to a very similar sleep schedule, going to bed, between like 8 and 9 most nights, getting up between 4:30 and 5. And I'm like, if I'm sticking to this schedule anyway, why don't I just go ahead and shift it back into the morning drive and get to work earlier, get out of work earlier. I would not trade this schedule for almost any other.
Somebody should trade. I'm sure you have a lovely mattress, but you should probably upgrade to a Lisa mattress. Come straight to your door, and here's the great thing about it. Like old school buying mattresses, the delivery truck is like, hey man, we're going to be at your house between 10 and 3. Are you going to be home? No, I'm at work, because that's what people do during the day if you don't work morning radio. So it ships straight to your door, and the vacuum seal is really cool. It's almost like Alien from Alien. It's like just pops
blossoms out of it like that. That's awesome.
The wife loves it. We didn't know that we needed a little bit more firm mattress. We like that it breathes. We don't get overheated at night. And hey, here's what you do. Code ANDY, Andy. It's my name. Also your name, kind of.
It is.
Bam. You get $75 off your order.
I'm going to take credit for that promo code now.
And also right now, they still have their Memorial Day code up, so you can double dip. I'm just letting you know. Lisa.com, LEESA.com. I'm sure they're happy with that. Lisa.com, code Andy, ANDY for $75 off your order. Forget the Memorial Day part. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so
we'll edit that out in post.
I love so give me the daily schedule.
Up at 3.
Yeah.
First alarm. I have like 14 alarms set on my phone, just as that, because I'm bad about. I don't hit snooze. I hit off.
Yeah.
I know this about myself. So instead of having one alarm and hitting snooze, I set 14 alarms on my phone. First one goes off at 2:51, so I'm up, and out of bed usually by 3. And a couple hours of just at the computer doing show prep. Looking at the news, reading the stories, figuring out what we want to talk about. Me and my co-host John. We use like Gmail chat, and we sort of start chatting back and forth and doing the run sheet for the day. I'm at the station no later than 5:30, between 5 and 5:30.
Yep.
Do the show, and then I'm also the executive producer for the station. I used to be program director, and then my title changed, and they did some reshuffling of management, so my title went from program director to executive producer.
Yeah.
But so I'm basically in charge of anything
Did the
operational.
change come with more money?
Sadly, no. Sadly, no.
That's how they usually do it.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So I'm anything operational regarding the station, programming logs, all that stuff I'm in charge of. So show ends at 9, depending on how much I got to do that day. Some days I'm out of there at 9:30. Some days I'm there till like 1:30.
Yeah.
Just depends on what I got going on. And then I disconnect. When I leave the station, unless there's like breaking news happening, I give myself like a little 3 to 4 hour window where I just sort of disconnect from the news. I step away from the internet. I'll keep an eye on social media, but I'll go and I'll watch my shows, play a video game, maybe play some poker, something like that. And then about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, I get back into the grind. Back checking the news, loading up some stories that I might want to talk about the next day, doing the prep, eat some dinner, call it a day.
Now, what's the family situation?
2 kids, ages 16 and 20, so they're older.
I got you.
They don't require, nor do they want much of my time or attention.
Yeah. Well, we were talking before the show. I'm like that's an awesome schedule. Like the mornings suck, I'm sure, but yeah, when you get to my age, you start calming down, and you don't mind the early to bed stuff.
No,
especially since I have a soon-to-be 2-year-old, so I'm really big about getting as much sleep as possible. And yeah, like the schedule, like you're done at 9:30, out of there at 10. You're free to do stuff in the afternoon when stuff isn't as busy. Don't really have to deal with traffic. You never have to miss like a T-ball game in the afternoon or anything like that, and that's amazing.
It's great. I wouldn't trade the schedule for anything. I love having the those late mornings, early afternoons time. I get a honey-do list pretty regularly. You need to go to this store, go to that store. If I've got errands to run, if I've got stuff I got to take care of, I don't have to deal with the crowds, and I never have to be in rush hour traffic. And that is the best part about this entire schedule is I get irrationally upset when I get stuck in traffic now, and I do everything in my power to try to avoid it.
Yeah, the only people on the road at 5 a.m. are you, like cleaning crews, and probably Michael Floyd.
Right.
That might be too soon.
He might be calling. He might be heading home.
That might be too soon. But let's back it up. Where do you come from? Where'd you go? And how'd you get to this point?
Man.
Let's go through all the stops. I love radio stops because radio journalism, it's such a nomadic profession.
It really is. It's very, very transient. Mm-hmm. I had no intention of getting into radio. I was going to, I went to college for a year. Wasn't doing well, dropped out, went to community college for another year, and was just not really finding anything that was striking a chord. A buddy of mine started going to this place. It was called the Audio Recording Technology Institute in Orlando.
That sounds fake.
It was, it's one of those two trade school, vocational type schools. Yeah,
come to ITT
you get a
Tech
certificate, of completion. But it was for studio work, recording. We were kind of in a band at the time, and that's what I wanted to do.
Ooh, what genre?
Just whatever we could. Yeah. Cobble together at 2 a.m. after our restaurant shift. Genre.
I bet you were a bass player.
You got it.
Yes.
Good call, man.
Yeah.
Nice read.
Yeah. That's why you don't want to play poker with me.
So studio recording, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to record bands. I loved it. I loved playing with audio. I was a huge audiophile. Just loved everything about it. So I went to that program, and through that program, they really wanted you to do an internship. My favorite show at the time was Russ and Bo. It was Russ and Bo. They're on from 7 to 10 at night on Real Radio 104.1 in Orlando. They're now Bo's no longer with the show. Russ is now the host of. It's called Monsters in the Morning. He's been doing it forever. Wildly successful down there. Heard him do an on-air call for internships while I was delivering pizzas one night. Showed up. I was fortunately the only one who showed up. So I was guaranteed the internship. And that was it. I mean, I've been in radio pretty much nonstop ever since. Did about a 6-month internship. My daughter was about to be born, and I told the guys, I'm like, look, I gotta get a paying job. I can't afford to do the internship anymore with my daughter coming along. I got to get a second gig. So Russ was kind enough to hire me at his shop that he owned. Yep. And then the radio station hired me as a part-timer, and I did just fill-in work. Was a music jock on the weekends. Did that for a few years, left that station, went to a brand new launched station in Gainesville, Florida called The Sky, 97.3 FM, WSKY. And that was a traditional news talk station. Yep. Rush Limbaugh, conservative news heavy focus in the mornings. And got hired there as a part-time morning producer, and 6 months later, I was the program director.
Wow.
It was crazy. I mean, it was just...
I feel like radio is the only industry where there's maybe, in most places that aren't owned by like iHeart and Cumulus and whatnot, where there's like 3 levels. Like you got talent, you got the owner, and then in the middle you got the station manager or whatever.
Yeah. You got the people who actually
it's
keep
a thin
the station running. Yeah. And and that was my gig. I was producing the morning show. I was doing pretty much everything at the station. And one of the ratings books came back, and it was horrible. It was terrible. And the program director just walked out. Yeah, a guy named Jim. He just quit. Never saw him again. He's like, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And he walked out. And the general manager called me in his office, and he's like, look, Andrew, you're doing everything anyway. We want to go ahead and make you program director. We're going to make you full time. We're going to give you a little raise. Not much is going to change about your day-to-day activities. You're going to keep doing what you're doing, but now you're the program director. So it was a really learning on the job experience. Yeah. And I did that for about 5 years, and then the company Entercom bought some stations in Indianapolis, and they asked me to come up there and run their news talk station they just purchased there. I did that for 3 years, and then there was a station launching in Tucson, Arizona, an FM talk station. And the company that was launching it reached out to me, asked me if I'd come run that, and the opportunity to launch an FM talk station and really just sort of put my own thumbprint on it was too good to pass up. Yep. So went there, did that. That's where I met my co-host, John. I hired him to be my morning show host there. Hey. And he and I just clicked, and 6 months into it, we were doing a really great show, and the ratings were really solid. And we just had a great chemistry on the air together. And took 6 years, after I came up here, but I was finally, the cards finally fell in the right place to bring them up here, and now we're doing our morning show together, and couldn't be happier.
Now, how did you transition from Tucson up to here? Like what kicked you up here? besides the weather? It's like,
it's kind
I got to go north because I need a little winter in my life.
No, the weather was the last reason.
Yeah.
It's kind of a funny story. I'm from Florida. I grew up in Florida. Yep. Miami is my home. That's where I grew up. And then we moved to Ocala, Central Florida, when I was in high school. And so I got family all over Florida, and I love Florida. And always was looking for an opportunity to go back.
Yep.
So a program director job opened up within Clear Channel, iHeart now, but Clear Channel at the time, in Tampa. And I was like, I wasn't really looking to leave Tucson, but I thought, Tampa, what a perfect opportunity. Get back to my family, get back to Florida, get back to home, basically. And so I went hard after that Tampa job. I applied, I was calling the operations manager, I was really persistent with it. But they ended up hiring the guy that was running the station up here, KTLK, to go down to Tampa. But because I'd kind of gone so hard after that job and developed a couple of relationships, they asked me if I wanted to replace the guy that they hired down in Tampa up here. And at first I was a little lukewarm on it, but at the same time, Tucson is market size matters in radio. And my program director trajectory was on kind of an upswing. I'd made a pretty good name for myself in the industry with the success of the station in Tucson. And it was an FM talk station at the time, 100.3. And I thought, to go from like market 65 to market 16, still be able to program an FM talk station. It felt like a really, really good career trajectory move. They made me an offer, and it all just kind of worked out.
And how much are like people into the ratings books? Like, is it Howard Stern's Private Parts is like we dipped 2 points because I don't know how accurate like the online ratings are, because I occasionally look at some of the stations in the Twin Cities. I'm like, man, there's some like big name stations that do pretty low numbers and seem to be doing prosperous. And some program directors I've talked to and some talents, like, we don't really even care about the numbers. We care about putting out a good product. Like, how much of that is true and how much is that just put on a brave face?
It's going to vary from station to station, honestly. The problem with the online numbers that you see, go to like All Access or Nielsen and look at the publicly produced numbers, is you're looking at the broadest demographic out there, 6+, like men, women, 6+, everything. So what you don't see in that are stations that do well in very specific demos. Like, for example, like the news talk genre, the news talk format is primarily geared towards a bit of an older demo. It skews a bit older. Everybody wants a 2554 Pi, and that's important for news talk as well. But truthfully, news talk's core is more 3564. So, if you got a station that does really well in, say, men 40 to 54 or 40 to 64, kind of a narrow demo, but they're a top 3, top 4 station in that demo. That's a station that's going to make money. You can sell advertising with those numbers.
And having even a smaller amount of that demo is on some level more important than having, say 10x of the 12 to 15 demo.
Right. Exactly. There are demos that are more attractive to advertisers than others. And so it's going to vary from station to station. You get your big time stations, your KDWBs or your KFANs or your K102s, just to plug a few of my iHeart sister stations. The ratings, from month to month do matter. They want to maintain those levels where they're at. Whereas if you got some of your smaller stations, it's more about just achieving, past a certain bar in their target demo.
Yeah. And how'd you find John Justice?
That's a funny story, actually. Yeah. I was launching that station in Tucson, right? And we were looking for our morning host. And the first guy that we tried to hire didn't pan out. Second guy we tried to hire didn't pan out. We launched on April 10th, 2007, and our goal was to have our morning show host hired and in the market by the end of March, all right, or May, I'm sorry. And it's now like mid-June, heading into early July, and we still don't have a morning host.
The hot season in Tucson.
John had applied like 2 or 3 times. He was very persistent, but the guy had no real news talk experience.
What had he done before?
He'd been in music radio for 15 years. I mean, and he had a really successful run in music radio. He was on some really high-profile shows in some big markets. So he was very well accomplished, but the fact that he was so green in news talk sort of put him towards the bottom of my list. I really wasn't that interested in him. I listened to his demo. I thought it's decent, you know. The guy was just super persistent. So a couple of hosts pan out, doesn't pan out. This consultant, a guy named Greg Mosheri, who I have a ton of respect for, and absolutely valued his opinion. He finally calls me one day out of the blue, and he's like, look, you got to give this guy John a shot. He's really, really good. Yeah, I know he's green. I know he doesn't have the experience you're looking for, but I'm telling you, this guy knows what he's doing. He's going to be a star. I was like, all right, you know, if Greg's going to vouch for you, I'll give you a shot. So John flew to Tucson on his own dime. He was in Grand Rapids, Michigan at the time, and came in, and he did a couple shows for me. And I fell in love with the guy. I mean, I saw what a hard worker he was. I saw how dedicated he was. I saw how much time and effort he put into his prep. The guy came to the first show with a stack of prep, literally like 7 inches tall. Just a ridiculous amount of prep.
Would you say Jay and Silent Bob-ish platonic life partner?
yeah, I would.
You can be Jay.
Oh, I want to be Silent Bob.
You know, radio is fun. Like you talked about you in music. I feel like radio is a lot like music, where there's no like clear entry. Like sometimes you are like the nephew of the program director, and that's how you get in. And you actually have some talent, and then you move on up. Or, you know, like John, like coming from the music side, you want to get into talk, you keep on applying, keep grinding, and do your thing. And, you know, it's like the Beatles when they're in Liverpool. They played every single night, a couple shows a night at every single pub, just trying to get as many at-bats as possible. And, you know, that's sort of the adventure that I'm on now, like doing a podcast every single day, doing several podcasts, doing stuff at night, avoiding my family. That's okay. Because, you know, we get good ratings on the show, but and also you never know who's listening. Like, Chad Abbott could be like, well, Drew Lee is on this show, so why don't we check it out? Hey, this kid's actually not a complete a-hole. Who knows? Or, you know, Brad, 1500. What's up, Brad? How's it going? And I feel like you never know who's listening. You never know what at-bat you're going to have. And it's kind of because, like you said, you applied, came into intern, all of a sudden you're filling in, and then you're on air. Like, and it's funny, like WCCO, they're advertising their 3 to 6 slot, just like on Monster.com.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I sort of love radio in that there's no rules. Like, it really is like Thunderdome out there.
Yeah. You never know. So much of it can be just being in the right place at the right time. Neil Bortz tells a funny story. Neil Bortz is a longtime syndicated host that I loved his show. I was a huge fan of his show, and he tells a funny story about how he got into radio because he just decided he wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So he would sort of camp out in front of this talk radio station day after day after day.
Just like a megaphone. Hey.
Yeah, just trying to get some face time with somebody that could make the decision, just trying to get on the air to do anything. And then one day, the host died. Just died.
Yeah.
And he happened to be there.
Oh my God, that reminds me of how Royce got like one of the first jobs at the Strip as like sports director, because the guy died of a heart attack. That was actually in the newspaper clipping.
It's like what I was saying earlier about how I got to be a program director. I got to be a program director because I was there. I was there, and I was doing the stuff anyway. I knew how the station ran. And the program director at the time, if he hadn't decided to just, you know, throw his hands up and say, I'm done with this, this is not what I want to do anymore, who knows where I would be right now.
And I'm sure that's a bit of a talking point on your show about the younger generation looking for handouts and stuff. Is like, oh, how come I'm not on mid-mornings of a 100,000-watt FM talk station? And because you're not doing the work. It's like, what are you doing? Are you out doing a podcast? Are you out doing every single spot you possibly can? Are you out just getting in reps? Like, are you doing a show where you maybe get 2 downloads and they were accidental, like a cat clicked on one, except you still got an hour of on your feet talking experience, which is very important. Oh, you're not doing that? Well, then you're not going to get your chance when opportunity rears its ugly head.
The biggest piece of advice that I always tell young people that come into the station as board ops or whatever, and they're asking, you know, how do I get ahead? How do I get ahead? First thing I tell them is never say no.
Yep.
Whatever is asked of you when you're trying to get your foot in the door, when you're trying to get noticed, unless it's like an absolute dire family emergency or something, you lost a leg in a farming accident, never say no. Always say yes. And even if you don't know what you're doing.
That sounds like an HR loaded gun just waiting to happen.
Okay, say no sometimes.
All right. Before I hop into a break, the Justin Drew show with the awesome Sam Sansevier.
Yeah, she's amazing.
How did that come together? By the way, we didn't cover how you decided to jump from behind the scenes to on air.
Yeah, that's its own story.
Yeah.
But Sam had been working with a few years ago. I wanted to launch a sort of a little mini podcast network under the auspices of the radio station. So I started putting together a roster of podcasts. That's how the Beercast came to be. Mm-hmm. And one of the shows that had kind of caught my ear as a podcast is Wrong About Everything. And so I was familiar with the show, and I wanted to sort of bring it into the family. I wanted to bring it into the fold. And Sam Sansevier happened to be producing that show. I didn't know Sam. I'd never met Sam. But I met some of the hosts, and I started talking with them. We brought him over, and through the course of that, I met Sam, and I started to get familiar with her work and listening to the show. And I was like, this girl's, she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, she was 19 at the time, and I was just really impressed with the quality of her work for being so young. We had a producer on our morning show, a guy named Dylan, who got an opportunity to go work to do, he was sort of a part-timer, weekend guy, overnight guy within the cluster, and he got a prime-time opportunity in a smaller market. So he was leaving to go pursue that, and Sam was really my main target. Once I knew we were losing Dylan, I reached out to Sam, asked her if she wanted to be a part of it, brought her on, and she's just been an absolute rock star.
Yeah. And the great thing about Sam, like I know her like secondary, like I met her a couple times, but the great thing about her, from everyone that I've talked to, is like she works her ass off, and even at such a young age, like a lot of people, living off of her last name, Bob Sansevier, he's a name in this market, could just phone it in, and I'm sure there's some people who think like, oh, look, Daddy got her a job and blah blah blah.
That is the furthest furthest thing from the truth was as far as her employment at TCNT.
No, absolutely. Like if you have a father or mother with a large name, like there's two ways you can go. You can trade off of it, or you can make sure that you work twice as hard just to get back to par, in people's opinion. And Sam's definitely the latter there.
Sam is definitely the latter. It's important for her. One thing I really respect about her is it's important for her to succeed on her own merits. She recognizes the value of her last name, and she is certainly cognizant of how that maybe opened a couple doors that might not have been opened otherwise. But once you get your foot in that door, it's entirely up to you. Her last name would not have had her be a part of our show or be a part of our station if the quality of her work.
Well, I mean, it could have for a day.
Right? Yeah. We may have gotten her in the door, but if the quality of her work sucked, then she wouldn't still be there.
Oh, she should take a stage name like Nahina Najad or something, like how Nick Cage changed his last name from Coppola.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
But we just got some Blue Door Pub deliciousness delivered, so we're going to take a little break. We're right back with more Boo and Carlson on a Tuesday, whatever day it is. Doesn't matter. Andy Carlson here, Purple for the Win podcast, letting you know that we'll be here all off-season long talking the Vikings angle on everything. Combine, pro days, free agency, the draft, OTAs, training camp in 2017. Baby. Get the show on 1500 ESPN, Podcast One, and the Podcast One app. And coming back into the Blue Door Pub Thunderdome. And I was just telling Drew that I like to save the Blue Door reads until after they have consumed some Blue Door deliciousness. Now,
I don't blame you, dude.
Now, what'd you get?
I had the, what is it called? It's their chicken sandwich.
The cluck,
but it had kind of the cluck, that's right. Yeah.
All about the puns here. That's why I love them. Yeah. And I had the horseradish blue sea, and we're consuming a couple of their fine local taps here at the Blue Door Pub.
I gotta give a shout out to my buddies down at Bad Weather. I'm drinking their Hop Chromancer.
Yeah.
Love the guys over at Bad Weather. Awesome room if you haven't been there. Fantastic location, fantastic room, and they're really good people.
Ooh, we'll have to get you another one, then we'll talk Trump. I'm just going to get down to the Blue Door Pub right now. Tennessee Hot Wings as they're just wing it, and the Bangkok Blue Sea as the Blue Sea of the moment. Oh, and also get the Sacre Blue Tachos before they're gone, because they're amazing. 3 Twin Cities locations, Longfellow, St. Paul, and University on Como, where we're sitting right now, the BDP.com. So come back in, Drew Lee of Twin Cities News Talk, and we were talking about your shift from behind the scenes to on air. We talked a little bit on the show, but like, what was that meeting of like, I'm the hero the city deserves.
Oh, God.
And the one it needs.
It was nothing like that.
Yeah.
It was more out of a necessity than anything else. You know, I've always been, you know, I was talking about with radio, you know, you never say no, right? So anytime there's something that needs to be done, I always try to figure out how to do it, whether or not it's something I've ever done before or even something that I, you know, feel especially proficient in. And we got to a situation at the radio station where, you know, I went from being program director, like pure management, behind the scenes, had my office, worked out of my office, did the 9 to 5 thing.
Had the tucked in shirt.
Had the tucked in shirt. Showed up to work first day in a suit jacket, you know, and my ops manager at the time was like, don't.
Did you have a briefcase?
No, I did not have a briefcase.
Because that would have been peak.
He was like, you are way overdressed. Do not do that again. You're going to make us all look bad.
Yeah.
But no, it was just one of those things where, you know, the station had sort of, you know, been a victim of cuts, you know, a number of times. So every time that happens, you know, you got to figure out how to continue to get the job done, continue to do what needs to be done with less people. And that's just sort of how I found my way moving from, you know, pure behind the scenes management to producing the morning show to being more of a part of the morning show to now being co-host of the morning show.
Now, see, do you want another beer, Drew?
I would like another beer, but I'm going to switch to a Steel Toe Size 7.
This is a good pot.
Give a shout out to Steel Toe.
Yeah, this is a good segue. Because I love that a lot of people like, man, all I want to do is get onto a morning radio show in a large market like the Twin Cities, and then you got on just because you didn't have enough people. That's great.
It was a bit out of necessity.
That is a pure radio story.
Yeah,
and you know, we talked a little bit in the first half.
Like I said, sometimes it's just being there.
Yeah,
you know.
So the main, obviously, Trump has been huge, been killing it, and you know, not getting too political, but just for purely entertainment value, the call-ins. I feel like that's gold.
It's great.
Yeah,
it's wonderful. And you know, we do have a fairly diverse. Well, I don't want to say diverse, but we got, you know, a pretty broad range of opinions, even within, you know, people that consider themselves conservative when it comes to Trump. You got a lot of conservatives who did not support Trump, continue to not be real fans of Trump. They don't really consider him to be their idea of what conservative is, and you've got a lot of sort of the conservatives / Republicans who are like, all right, you know, he's our quarterback now, and I want our team to win, so I'm going to support him, even though I may not, you know, agree with everything he does. I got to root for him. I got to support him, and I definitely got to defend him against the other team. And then you've got, you know, the sycophants, the people that are just like all Trump. Everything he does is awesome because he's Trump. You know, so you got 3 real distinct camps, even within the spectrum of conservatives and Republicans.
I feel kind of bad for like a kid who's had a red trucker hat his entire life. It's like his favorite minor league baseball team. Wore it every single day. And then like 2 years ago happened, and he's like, I could never wear my hat in public again. Otherwise my friends would kick my ass.
Why am I getting so much grief over this hat?
Yeah. And it's funny having, you know, we talk about Sam Sansevier on the show because I feel like the younger demographic definitely skews to the left. I don't know if it's a generational thing. I actually think it's more of an age thing.
I agree.
Because when I was young, I was like, well, not to dive too full in subjects, like, why doesn't everyone have health care? And then as I get older, I was like, oh yeah, someone's got to pay for that. Wait, hold on. Now I'm making some dollars. Now I got to pay for that.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute.
Why do I got to pay for your health care?
Yeah.
You know, why can't you pay for it yourself?
Yeah.
Look, when you're young, it takes a while to sort of come to the realization that just because something sounds like a good idea doesn't necessarily mean that it's practical, that it's realistic, or that it would work in the real world. You know, that's something that comes with experience and maturity. That's why a lot of younger people sort of lean left because, and again, not to be too political, and I'm going to paint with a very broad brush here, and I understand that, and you know, but the left, generally speaking, relies more on what feels good. If it feels like a good idea, it seems like something that, the government should do because it's just the right thing to do. Whereas when you're on the right, you're more about but is it really practical? Can you really afford it? And for me, it's always about, I'm definitely more libertarian leaning than anything else. For me, it's about, all right, if that's such a good idea, and if the government's going to do it, how is that going to infringe on my ability to make the choices? The government operates with one instrument, and that's force.
Did you vote for Gary Johnson?
I did.
Yeah. Man, he'd be such a good candidate if he wasn't such a kook.
I know. That was that was such a missed opportunity for libertarians. I mean, it really was. And I love Gary, and I know Gary's got, he's by far from perfect. I'll be the first to admit that.
No, Aleppo was phenomenal last night. He went 3 for 4 with a double.
Yeah, that was such a missed opportunity, man. There was a little window of time in there when everybody knew Hillary was going to be the nominee, and everybody was sort of coming to the realization that Trump was going to be the nominee, and suddenly there was just millions of people that were looking for something different, and a lot of focus got put on the Libertarian Party. A lot of focus got put on Gary Johnson, and he was not ready for that big a stage.
Yeah. And also, just crapping on young people some more. I feel like there has been a separation between liberals and the left because liberal as an ideal is a very noble idea, but it's been so warped, and just the left of the only free speech we allow is speech we agree with, and that's on college campuses, that's on social media, that's in the public, and that's not a healthy sign, especially in 20 years. Like, these kids are going to be running things.
When your ideology sort of becomes so dogmatic that tolerance of dissension on even minor issues is thrown out the window, then you've got a real problem. You got a cancer, on your side, and neither side has any sort of monopoly on that. You've seen it happen on the right, you've seen it happen on the left, and that's when you sort of need. What is happening, I think, right now on the left is you're getting a bit of a purge. You're getting a bit of a purge of Hillary Clinton represented sort of the last vestiges of that establishment Democrat, cabal, and she's been purged now, and her political career is completely done. Now Yeah, it is. And now a lot of the chatter is, who's on the bench. Nobody has any clue who's going to be the standard bearer for the Democrat Party going forward. Democrats have no idea. There's some names being bandied about, but, man, the bench is real thin, and that's sort of a transfer. The left is in a bit of a transformative period right now. And what emerges from it, I couldn't sit here and tell you, but...
it's going to be Van Jones. It's going to be Cory Booker. Actually, that one could be true.
Cory Booker is a possibility.
Yeah. And I may be in the minority, and maybe this could be a hot take too, but I feel like if we all agreed, if all 300 million of us agreed and had the same ideology, that would be very bad.
That'd be horrible.
Yeah.
Because look, the problem with it, trying to find a way to get everybody to agree is you end up sort of with the worst of both sides, not the best of both sides. You end up with sort of the lowest common denominator of both sides, and that's never good. I mean, part of the reason that the Affordable Care Act had as many issues as it was because it was a result of a lot of compromise within various camps, even within the Democratic Party. And if someone would have just come along and led with a very clear and distinct vision, it would have been entirely different and probably would have been a lot better.
Yeah. And the last point of just crapping on young people, like when I was young, they were banding about the idea of a higher minimum wage. And like, it's 15 now. Like they're shooting for 15 now. Yeah. Like back in the day, it could have been like 12 or 13, whatever. And I was like, yeah. I mean, that's gonna be. I mean,
sounds good, right?
$15 an hour. That's $30,000, 2,000 hours. I mean, a single mom can live off that. But then I was thinking, wait, that money has to come from somewhere. So the business owner is either going to lay people off or raise prices, pass out on the consumer. Franchises are going to raise prices, and then they're going to lay people off. So fewer people are going to have jobs. The ones that do are going to be content to stick with that job, which was meant to be an entry-level springboard job for the rest of their lives. And then all of a sudden, you have a 57-year-old mother of 4 with 16 grandkids, and now she's the head fry chef at McDonald's.
Yeah, it's real easy to support something that requires no sacrifice on your part. And that's, to me, that's my biggest frustration with the minimum wage debate is, all these people are so passionate about it and they're supporting it and they're going to the marches and they're going to rallies. All you're doing is advocating for other people to make a sacrifice for something you think that they should do or you think other people should have.
And I understand. That's why I think it's more of a young age thing, because
it feels good.
I've yelled that all the time. Then I actually looked at the numbers as I got older. I was an econ major. I'd never used that day in my professional life, but whatever. And it's like the minimum wage should be 0, because it's a two-party
to the Libertarian Party,
because it's a two-party consent thing. Like if you have all right, so I need rock breakers, and I'm going to offer $1 an hour. You're going to get 0 people.
Right.
I need rock breakers. I'm going to offer $100 an hour. You're going to get a ton of people. Eventually, those intersect. You'll find an equilibrium, and that could be 35, that could be 45, that could be 9.
Here's the thing about minimum wage that not a lot of people, I think, realize or want to discuss is that it's incredibly discriminatory. It takes away my freedom to offer my services to an employer for at a wage that he and I agree upon. If I decide that I want to go to my local grocery store and offer my services as a bag boy for $6 an hour or for $5 an hour, and I am content with that and I am okay with that, and the grocery store owner is okay with that transaction, now you got the government stepping in and saying, no, you can't do that. You, Andrew, cannot go and take that job at $6 or $7 an hour because we think you need to be making more.
Yeah. I mean, as I get old, I'm not a full-fledged libertarian. I'm I'm a Minnesota conservative, so I'm basically in the middle of the grand scheme of things.
It sounds to be like you're a normal person. I think most normal people would find themselves in agreement with a fairly large percentage of what libertarians stand for.
Because I like to stay apolitical on Twitter, but a couple things says oh, you're a libertarian, but yeah, probably, but I don't want to sign up. I don't want a prefix menu. I want a buffet where I can sort of pick and choose, man. That's what I want. I'm for small government. I'm for lower income tax, lower corporate tax. I just want to make sure that we have enough for roads, and also so we don't get invaded by Canada. I mean, that's it. That's really all I want.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
Yeah,
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Keep government focused on its core services, on things that it actually does well.
Yeah.
I mean, government is important, and government does certain things very well, and it does things that would be very difficult to accomplish in the private sector. So let's keep government focused on that. When you start straying in all these other areas, government is very, very bad at that because it operates like a blunt instrument.
Yeah.
And it operates with its only enforcement mechanism being actual force, the force of law coming down upon you if you don't comply with whatever they want to comply with. And that is not the way to foster innovation. That is not the way to foster the free exchange of ideas, free exchange of relationships, free associations. You lose all those things the more the government intrudes upon things that it has no business intruding on.
2 Trump questions.
Sure.
Or one, whatever. Do you think he gets impeached at any point during his term?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Because impeach doesn't mean he has to leave. I mean, Bill Clinton got impeached too.
Yeah. So you're asking if articles of impeachment will be drawn up against the president at some point during his term. Right now, I'm going to say no, but it's not a incredibly confident no, and the only reason I'm saying no is because Republicans control the House. Articles of impeachment have to be drawn up in the House. I think it'll be the threshold is going to have to be, just absolutely blatant, clear and undisputable evidence of genuine wrongdoing for articles of impeachment to be brought up. Ask me again in 2 years after the midterm elections, that answer might change.
Yeah. Now, what percentage right now? If you're a gambler, man, what percentage? First term, 4 years. We'll say that. What percentage chance do you think impeachment comes up?
I'm going to say 35, 40%. 35%.
Wow.
35%.
That's amazing.
Yeah?
That's pretty big, yeah.
You think it's too low or too high?
No, I'm surprised. I mean, that's That's still that's like 1 time out of 3. It's like 4 times out of 10.
You know, again, it depends on what happens in the midterm elections. I mean, the midterm elections are a big question mark. And if I'm a betting man, and I'm betting right now, I say the Republicans are going to have a really difficult time hanging on to their majorities based on the way things are right now. Now, that could, the dynamic could be completely different going forward. But the Democrats are going to have a ton of momentum going into the midterm elections because they have managed to successfully convince a majority of people that Russia did, that the Trump administration did collude with Russia, that Russia interfered in this election. There are a lot of people that are absolutely 100% sure of that, even though there's no real hard evidence. There's a lot of innuendo, a lot of circumstantial evidence. So that's what they're going to run on in 2018. They're going to run on, they're going to run against Russia. They're not going to run against Trump. They're going to run against Russia in 2018. And I think right now I feel like that would be pretty successful.
All right. Question B, and then we'll check out of Trump. Hey, I feel bad that I have to almost put a trigger warning that between this time and this time we talk politics. But that's the world that we live in now. Does he win re-election in 2020? Oh, and two-part question. Who's he running against?
That's no freaking clue, man.
Or
no freaking
Is there a challenge within the Republicans?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There will be awesome. Republican challenges.
That'd be awesome. I want this to be as much like pro wrestling as possible. That's why I want The Rock in. Yeah.
He will have a significant and rather serious Republican challenger. Who it will be, I don't know. I mean, it could be Ted Cruz. It could be Rubio. Could be somebody that, it could be Rand Paul.
Yeah.
It could be somebody that hasn't really been elevated to that point yet. As far as who's going to run on the left, man, I mean, I was pretty sure for a while that Al Franken was going to get pushed to run and would probably take the bait. It appears now, he announced 2 weeks ago or last week that he's absolutely running for Senate in 2020. So that, I would, to me, that doesn't close the door entirely, but it certainly swings it.
It could be President Franken.
He could run, man.
Yeah.
If I'm a Democratic strategist right now, I mean, that's one of my top targets.
But Drew,
of trying
when's
to
the last time we've elected someone who used to star on NBC television as President of the United States? That's
right?
Ludicrous.
Yeah, someone who worked on a TV show for a long time. Yeah. That'll never happen.
Yeah. All right. And politics and scene. Beercast.
Yeah.
Yeah. How'd that come about, and what's your proudest moment so far?
The Beercast came about, like I mentioned earlier, I wanted to start the sort of the mini podcast network, and the first idea I had for a podcast was something about Minnesota craft beer. It was around the time, it was shortly after the Surly bill had passed, and you were seeing a real explosion of breweries just popping up left and right, and so there's so much good beer being made, not just in the Twin Cities, but all over the state of Minnesota, that I wanted to do a show just about Minnesota beer. And I just sent out a tweet. I was sitting on my couch, playing a video game, and hit pause, sent out a tweet. Hey, if anybody out there is interested in doing a podcast about craft beer, hit me up. And I put my email address in there. And it wasn't but 10 minutes later when my co-host, Andrew Schmidt, sent me an email. We were on the phone within a half an hour and getting to know each other. And later that week, he came in and we recorded a pilot episode. We had Town Hall Brewery in for the first episode, awesome. and we just sort of hit it off and started rolling with it from there. Proudest moment so far, gosh, that's tough because, I love being a part of such a congenial and friendly scene filled with such amazing people. And I guess I wouldn't say the proudest moment, but the thing that I'm most proud of is how well the show has been received from the craft beer community, from the brewers, from the owners, from the people that are involved with it and making it. They say such nice things about the show, and they invite us out to their establishments. They want to be a part of the show, and they want us to be a part of what they're doing. And it's been really warm and really gratifying.
I feel like beer is just something that brings people together. I mean, like,
that's
I know
the whole point of it, right?
I know there's beer snobs out there, but we sort of ignore them. Like, even like the conversations I had with brewers and people who work in the brewery community, it's like, screw them. I mean, who are you to judge how another man or woman takes the edge off.
Yeah,
you know?
Right, exactly. And I got to give Schmitty all the credit for this, because when I was coming up with the idea for the show, one of the things that I wanted to do was reviews. Like we would review a beer, and Schmitty was dead set against it. And I was like, at first I didn't understand why, but it didn't take long for me to realize, you know what, he's right, because it's so subjective. It's like what I like is maybe vastly different than what you like, maybe vastly different than what Joe Beer over there likes. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with any of our palates or anything wrong with, how we...
Joe Beer likes Special X. Yeah, that's for sure.
So, we could do a review, and like right now I'm drinking Steel Toe Size 7. Yeah. And this is an incredibly, well-regarded and well-received beer. I know it's won awards. Nobody has anything bad to say about it. But if I took a sip of this and it didn't hit my palate right, and I went on the air and did a review of it, and I was like, this beer is skunky and it's strong and it just tastes terrible. The pine and citrusy overnotes are just way too overpowering. Then I come across like a douchebag, because now I'm trashing somebody's favorite beer just because it didn't hit my palate right,
And see, I've sort of forayed into this too, because I started a YouTube show called Andy Drinks Beer. Subscribe on our YouTube channel. And I'm really focusing on local Minnesota beers, because I like promoting local Minnesota businesses. That's what I do. Yep. Most of my sponsors are local, except for Lisa, whatever. And then,
you should still buy their mattresses, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Promo code Andy. The thing about me, though, is like I've never had a bad beer. Right, since the age of 15. I mean, as weird as that sounds. I'm not a huge fan of IPAs, but I understand and respect it. We've been doing a lot of IPAs on the show, so that's been kind of a tough stretch. But I fully understand where people are going. I'm not snobbish about it, and if someone says you got to appreciate the notes of persimmon, that's when you know it's over. That's when you know that you got a terrible person.
You've gone too far.
Yeah, but all right. So Desert Island. You're Tom Hanks, Castaway.
Okay. All right.
You get one FedEx box, and it's got your favorite stuff in it. So give me one beer, one movie, and one personal effect item. And it can't be like satellite phone.
All right, one beer, one movie, one personal effect item. One beer. If I'm picking right now.
Yeah. And we'll say it's a magical growler that just automatically refills.
I'll tell you what, I'm always... my beer palate will shift from time to time. I'll go on an IPA kick. I'll go on a Hefeweizen kick. I'll go on a lager kick for a while. But one beer that I consistently love and have a hard time not ordering it whenever I see it on tap is Bent Paddle Cold Press. Mm-hmm. Their cold press, their black, their coffee ale is it just hits all the right notes for me.
I gotcha.
I just love that beer. So that's going to be my beer. Although, Desert Island, you really want a big, heavy, dark black beer with coffee? Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
All right. Movie, I'm going to go with Blues Brothers. That's been my movie since I was a kid.
Blues Brothers 2000.
I'm done. Show's over. I'm leaving. Yeah. You don't even mention that in my company. That abomination of a film.
No, John Goodman was...
Blues Brothers has been my go-to movie ever since I was a kid, man. I love every single song. I love every single performance. I love John Belushi. I love Dan Aykroyd. I love James Brown, Aretha Franklin. John Lee Hooker's got an appearance.
Yeah.
Ray Charles. I mean, you cannot beat that. Cab Calloway. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that movie. And you got an epic car chase, with tons of crashed police cars at the end.
And you got John Candy cameo.
You got John Candy.
Orange Whip.
300 Whips. 300 Whips. Yeah, classic. Just classic.
Yeah.
You got the Peter Gunn theme. With the Carrie Fisher shooting rocket launchers.
Them just walking away.
What a great movie from start to finish, man. There's nothing wrong with that film. So that's my movie. Personal effect. That's interesting.
You
really
traded the Bluesmobile for a microphone. All right.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. See, that's like you said during the break. You're a bit of a cinephile, and just well done movies, no matter what era. Like, those are the movies I'm going to show. Like, I'm going to show Blues Brothers to my daughter.
Yeah.
Like, when she's of age. I'm not going to show her Blazing Saddles right away. Maybe that'll be a little bit later. But quality is quality is quality. And I think Hollywood has sort of lost his way to a degree.
Oh, yeah. Well, they don't take risks anymore,
Yeah.
you know, and that's the frustrating thing about the big studios. There's great movies being made. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's amazing films being made.
Amazing
They're just
films
not
and
being,
La La Land.
right. They're just not being made by the big studios anymore. Unless unless you're into the Marvel stuff, which I am. I absolutely love it, and those are fun. But there's great quality out there. But it's like people like Ghostbusters. Let's make Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
You know, people like superhero movies. Let's make another superhero movie. People like whatever. It's the latest young adult teen book series is going to be made into a 7-movie feature. Yeah. It's just the risk taking is we got to cast Jennifer Lawrence and everything.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like, I'm hard on Hollywood for recycling ideas because I feel like they've done pretty much everything. Like, even like something like Blues Brothers, I don't know if that could get made today. Like, I don't know if a studio would take that risk and be like, well, it's an SNL sketch. I mean, can we really stretch it out to an hour and a half, hour 45 minutes feature? I don't really know. But if you remake a movie and it's actually good writing, good acting, like they're remaking Ocean's 11, Ocean's 8 with Sandra Bullock and a female cast.
Right.
I think that's going to be phenomenal.
I hope so.
Yeah,
Ocean's 11 is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Because the writers and producers involved in that are actually good, and they're not just going to phone in and kind of like part of Ocean's 13. I digress there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I really like Ocean's 12 though.
Ocean's 12 was different. I think people went into Ocean's 12 not knowing what to expect, and I think it caught a lot of people off guard. Yeah. But when you go back and you sort of rewatch it and you treat it like the travelogue type film that it is meant to be, it's good.
See, I want the Ocean's 11 with the realistic ending where Danny Ocean just caps everyone at the fountain and keeps all the money for himself. Because that's what would happen. I mean, come on.
Right, you're dealing with a bunch of criminals.
I'm not going to split this 11 ways. I'm Danny Ocean.
There's no honor amongst thieves. Yeah. Personal effect. I'm going to cheat a little bit because I'm going to combine my two favorite things to do when I'm sitting out on the nice weather day, and that is smoke a cigar and do a Kakuro puzzle. Kakuro. Are you familiar with Sudoku?
Yes.
Okay. Kakuro is similar to Sudoku, however, instead of it being, sort of the 9x9 square where you're lining up the numbers and you can't repeat them 1 through 9, it's a crossword puzzle.
Okay.
But instead of clues like with words, you get totals. So your answer for one stretch of squares is going to be 12. Yep. And you'll have 4 boxes. You got to come up with 4 numbers that equal 12. You can't repeat the same number in an answer. And no zeros, 1 through 9.
Man,
that's my thing. That's my disconnect, sit out on the deck, and just dive deep into my book of Kakuro puzzles.
I feel like people do need a disconnect.
Yeah.
Like, completely something that's, like, I'm sure, like, Hillary Clinton goes home and, like, watches Real Housewives. Like, that would be awesome. That would be so amazing. Like,
she's watching Toddlers and Tiaras.
That would be so great. Yeah. Or Trump tries to do work, and that's his disconnect from him. 2 more questions. I'll get you out of here. I know you got to go to bed. The trip to Norway.
That was really cool. Backstory on that is one of the first things I did when I moved up here and took over the station was launch the Minnesota Military Radio Hour.
Yeah.
I wanted a show that told the stories of people in the military and veterans, and gave listeners. Everybody likes to say support the troops.
Yep.
But it not often enough is that turned into something tangible.
But I put a green light in my garage light.
Yeah,
so
I put a yellow ribbon sticker on the back of my car. No, so I wanted a show that told the stories of veterans and people currently serving and their families, because the families make plenty of sacrifices as well.
Yep.
And so I got hooked up with Tom Lyons through a guy at the station. He's a veteran. He does a lot of work with the National Guard and with the Beyond the Yellow Ribbon Group and with the Minnesota Military Family Foundation, all amazing organizations. And we launched the Minnesota Military Radio Hour, and that show has just exploded. My vision for that show was it to be a simple little Sunday morning sort of public affairs type show. Tom Lyons and the Minnesota National Guard took the reins of that. Now they have 35, 36 affiliates throughout the state. I mean, it's an amazing what they've done with that. And with that has come some really cool opportunities, and one of those opportunities was the chance to sort of, every year the Minnesota National Guard does a soldier exchange with the Norwegian Home Guard. Norwegian soldiers come over here and train. Minnesota soldiers go over to Norway and train, and they do these joint training exercises every year. It's been going on for 44 years. And they just invited us to go along and do our show and sort of tell the stories.
That's awesome.
It was amazing. Yeah. I mean, it was an incredible trip. My first time in Europe.
Yep.
And just got to stay on base and hung out with soldiers and listened to their stories, got to know them, traveled around Trondheim.
Was it weird doing a night show?
Yeah, the timing was really, really weird, man. It was so weird because we were up at 6 a.m. local time to go out and do go with them on the exercises and the trainings and things like that. But our show was at 3 p.m. Local time for 6 a.m. here. And by that point, we were wiped. I mean, it had been a full day, and then to go and do our show for 3 hours, it was a really, really strange experience.
What was your favorite local food and drink?
It was very American, honestly. Yeah. I did not. I had some really great Norwegian beers, and I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce the name of the brewery, but there was this one brand I bought.
Dugenfingerstagenheim.
Yeah, something like that. It started with an A.
Yeah.
Incredible local beers. And there's a Pilsner that was a Dahl's Pilsner is brewed right there in Trondheim. So you're getting it nice and fresh right from the brewery. That was amazing. But the food was surprisingly American. Like the first place we went was basically an Italian restaurant. It was like any Italian restaurant you'd go.
Yes, we have this very fine restaurant called the Olive Garden.
Right. And then the place we went for dinner, I mean, the menu was kind of something you'd see at like a Joe Sensors, very much of a sports bar kind of menu. So didn't really get to experience much in the way of like Norwegian cuisine, but it was a wonderful experience.
With Applebee's and TGI Fridays falling out of favor here in the States, I feel like their international market could be huge.
Yeah.
Because like people, like especially like the Chinese and Asians, I'm sure Europeans as well, like they love like we're gonna go get American. It's like we're gonna get some greasy wings and stuff. It's like
yeah.
Sure, that could be big.
Just own it. Go real sticky with it over the top.
Yeah.
Make it as American as can be.
Everyone has to wear a cowboy hat.
Put like 7 slices of cheese on your burger.
Yeah. Man, that's great.
That sounds good.
Drew, what do you have to plug? What's coming up?
Let's see. We're Justice and Drew. We're actually heading to D.C. for a few shows here at the end of the month. So keep an eye out on social media for those announcements for the dates of that.
Refill the swamp.
Oh. Right? Yeah, we're gonna go help drain the swamp a little bit. The Minnesota Beer Cast is coming up at the St. Paul Summer Beer Fest on Saturday.
Yeah, that's big.
We're going to be doing their education seminars, and we're going to be recording a show there. We've got a really awesome education seminar planned with women in the beer industry in Minnesota. We've got 3 rock star women coming, and we're going to do an awesome panel discussion inside the education tent on Saturday the 10th. So swing on out, say hello, introduce yourself, and check out the Beer Cast. And that's about it. Follow me on Twitter, Andrew Lee TCNT, and I'll keep you up to date on the latest. Yeah, do that up. Drew, really appreciate you coming in. Thanks for having me, man. That was a lot of fun, dude. I feel like we could do another 3 hours, but you got to go to bed. Yeah, man. It's getting near my bedtime. Speaking of the St. Paul Beer Fest. And I'm missing WWE Raw. Come on. Oh, no, see, that's big. That's how I can tell that you've got a thing for me, because you skip Raw. wait, so pro wrestling. Yeah. Marvel movies. Yeah. And Game of Thrones, big time Game of Thrones. Okay. Yeah. I'm all into the nerd culture. I love it. You are Silent Bob. You are Kevin Smith. I am kind of silent. Yeah. I even dressed as him as Halloween one year. Yeah. A funny story, real quick. I used to have a full beard, right? And went to a Primus concert in Orlando one year, and was wearing not a trench coat, but just kind of a long duster type thing. Yeah. And I was wearing a backwards baseball cap. Was this before or after 1989? This was after 1989. No, 99. Gosh. It might have been right around there. Yeah. And some guy at the bar thought I was Kevin Smith. And he said, dude, I heard him say to his friend, he's like, dude, that's Kevin Smith. Yeah. So I just went with it. Yeah. I just rolled with it. I was like, yeah, I'm Kevin Smith. And they bought me beers all night. It was awesome. That's amazing. It was great. See, I want high-profile celebrities or athletes just to dress up like they're iconic characters. Like if Rainn Wilson dressed up as Dwight Schrute and just went out, or Teddy wore his number 5 jersey. No one would believe it was really him. Yeah. I'm Teddy. That's not Teddy. That's cosplay, man. You're cosplaying, dude. Speaking of the St. Paul Beer Fest coming up this weekend, our friend Soda Stick Co. will be out there as well, slanging merch. They got pre-orders for the Touch 'Em All hats. Yeah, and that's not the... Keep it clean, people. Get your head out of the gutter. It's fantastic. It's Twins lore. That's what they're doing. Selling hats, various styles. Pre-order now, sodastickco.com. And if you use promo code PurpleFTW, that's the OG, you get free U.S. shipping, because it's the best country ever.
Ever.
America.
You want to spread the word about the show? Tell a friend. Tell them about Bull with Andy Carlson. Add to the hashtag Jerome Homie Army. Big thanks to Drew for stopping in, my friend.
Thanks for having me, man. Love to come back sometime.
Also, props producer Allie for making me not sound so stupid. But until next time, I'm Andy saying Annyeong, sayonara, and bye-bye. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Bull with Andy Carlson, Minnesota's 87th best daily podcast. Download the show on iTunes. Everyone's middle name is Jerome.